The way the light hits the morning dew on my back lawn here in Charlotte always reminds me of the long shifts I spent at the city transit depot. When you supervise a fleet of hundreds of buses for 30 years, you learn that every machine has a rhythm, and you learn even faster that a green light on a dashboard doesn't always mean the engine is safe. I've seen buses come into the bay with perfect pressure readings on the gauges, only for the mechanics to find the actual frames were rotting from the inside out. We spent years just patching leaks and adding coolant, thinking we were doing the job, when the real problem was the structural integrity of the metal itself. I'm 72 years old now, and as I look back on my own health journey, I've realized that we've been lied to about our hearts in the exact same way. We've been told that high blood pressure is just a plumbing problem, too much fluid in the pipes, too much salt in the diet. Your doctor tells you to take a water pill, the pressure drops on the monitor, and everyone goes home happy. But I'm here to tell you that this way of thinking is an outdated relic from the 1970s. It's incomplete, it's misleading, and for many of us over 60, it's keeping us sick even when our numbers look controlled. Today, I want to talk to you about what it actually means to reverse hypertension. I'm going to share with you the 3 hidden mechanisms that I discovered, things your doctor likely never mentioned, that are actually responsible for the damage inside your vessels. I'm going to show you why your arteries might be turning into something that feels more like bone than muscle. And most importantly, I'll walk you through the 4-step protocol I've adopted to actually repair that damage at the cellular level. This isn't about managing a number. It's about rebuilding the machine before the frame gives out entirely. I remember when my daughter Danielle, who works as a nutritionist assistant, first sat me down with a stack of medical journals. I was frustrated because even though I was taking my pills and cutting my salt, I still felt stiff. I felt like every beat of my heart was hitting a wall. She explained to me that my arteries weren't just pipes. They were living, breathing organs with a delicate internal coating called the glycocalyx. Think of it as a microscopic Teflon coating on the inside of your vessels. When that coating is thick and slippery, your blood flows without friction, and your vessels know exactly when to relax. But for years I was doing things that were stripping that coating away like acid on metal. High blood sugar spikes, chronic stress from the depot, and processed foods were dissolving my protection. Once that Teflon was gone, my vessel walls were exposed to inflammation. Cholesterol started to stick. White blood cells began to invade the tissue. My blood pressure wasn't rising because I had too much fluid. It was rising because the pipes were becoming inflamed and restricted. No water pill in the world can repair a stripped lining, and that's why so many of us still have heart attacks, even when our blood pressure numbers look fine on the cuff. The second thing I had to wrap my head around was the concept of arterial stiffness. In the transit world, we had shock absorbers on every coach to handle the bumps on the road. When those shocks were new, you didn't feel a thing. But when they got old and rigid, every pebble felt like a pothole, and the vibration would eventually crack the engine mounts. Your aorta, the big artery leaving your heart, is supposed to be your body's main shock absorber. When your heart beats, that vessel should expand to take the pressure, then recoil to keep the blood moving. I realized that after 70 years, my shocks had become calcified. Calcium, which belonged in my bones, had migrated into the walls of my arteries. My vessels weren't just tight, they were literally turning into stone. When my heart contracted, it was slamming blood against a rigid wall that couldn't expand. That's why my top number, the systolic, was climbing while my bottom number stayed low. My doctor never mentioned pulse pressure, but Danielle showed me that the gap between those numbers was the real siren telling me my arteries were losing their life. Control begins with what you stop normalizing, and I had to stop normalizing the idea that stiff arteries were just an inevitable part of being 72. This led me to the third mechanism, something I call the insulin kidney lock. For a long time, I blamed the salt. I thought every grain of sodium was a threat, but I found out that the real culprit was my insulin levels. See, Insulin is the master switch for your kidneys. When your insulin is high, even if you aren't diabetic, it tells your kidneys to hold on to every bit of salt they can find. You could eat a zero-salt diet, but if your insulin is high, your kidneys will just recycle the same salt over and over again, keeping your volume high and your heart under strain. The lock is insulin, not the salt shaker. I've seen so many men my age, like my cousin Silas, who lived their lives by the standard rules. Silas took the diuretics, he avoided the salt, and he trusted the monitor. But Silas never addressed the stiffness, and he never addressed the insulin lock. He died after years of controlled numbers because his vessels were still rotting underneath the surface. I carry that memory with me every day. It's the reason I'm so quiet and firm about this. We cannot afford to just manage the symptom while the cause is still eating us alive. So how did I start the process of reversal? How did I move from just managing my pressure to actually remodeling my vessels? It started with restoring that glycocalyx coating. I had to stop the acid rain first. I started making sure my blood sugar never spiked above 140 after a meal. That meant saying goodbye to the white breads and the sugary snacks that I used to think were my reward for a hard day's work. I realized those spikes were the very things dissolving my arterial protection. Then, I started providing my body with the building blocks to rebuild. I started incorporating things like fucoidan from seaweed, natural compounds that help the body regrow that slippery lining. I flooded my system with antioxidants from colorful berries and dark leafy greens to neutralize the stress that was attacking my vessel walls. Gloria, my wife, had to change the way she stocked our pantry, but she saw the change in me. She saw the energy return to my face, and she saw that heavy, tight feeling in my chest begin to lift. The second step was the decalcification protocol. I learned that you can actually move calcium out of your arteries and back into your bones where it belongs. I started taking vitamin K2, specifically the MK7 form. Think of it as a traffic cop for calcium. Without it, the calcium just wanders aimlessly and ends up in your vessel walls. But with enough K2, it gets directed to your skeletal system. I paired that with vitamin D3 and a high-quality magnesium glycinate. Magnesium is nature's own calcium channel blocker. It prevents those crystals from forming in your pipes and keeps the muscle in your vessels relaxed. I remember talking to my son Marcus about this. He's in insurance, so he's always thinking about long-term risk and protection. He was worried I was trying to play doctor, but I told him, Marcus, I'm not playing doctor. I'm being a supervisor. I'm looking at the data. I'm listening to my body, and I'm doing the maintenance that the standard system ignores. After about 6 months on this protocol, my pulse pressure started to narrow. My arteries were gaining back their bounce. I wasn't just forcing a number down with a pill. I was changing the texture of my life. The third step was nitric oxide restoration. Nitric oxide is the gas your vessels produce to tell themselves to open up. When your lining is damaged, your body stops making it, and you're stuck in a state of permanent constriction. I started doing isometric hand grip exercises, just squeezing the simple device while I sat on the porch. That mechanical tension sends a massive signal to the vessel walls to produce that healing gas. I also stopped breathing through my mouth. I learned that our noses are designed to supplement our nitric oxide levels with every breath. It's a small, quiet change, but it's one that makes the whole system run smoother. Finally, I had to address the insulin lock. I started time-restricted eating, waiting until noon for my first meal, and finishing by 8 at night. That 16-hour window where I'm not eating gives my insulin levels a chance to drop to their baseline. For the first time in decades, my kidneys were finally unlocked. They started excreting the excess sodium naturally. I didn't have to be a slave to a salt-free diet because my body's own filtration system was finally back online. I want to be clear with you, this wasn't an overnight fix. Reversing 15 years of damage takes time and consistency. It's not about the one big thing you do. It's about the small patterns you repeat every day. The heart pays attention to what we do consistently. If we repeat habits of repair, the heart responds with life. I've watched my own pressure go from 148 over 90 down to a steady 120 over 74, and I did it while reducing the medications that used to leave me feeling exhausted and dizzy. I look at my grandkids now, and I realize that they are the real reason I'm doing this work. I want to be the man who can pick them up and run across the yard without feeling like my heart is going to burst against a stiff cage. I want to be the man who is present, not just managed. I see so many men my age who have just accepted that they are going to be slow and tired until the end. They've accepted that their controlled number is as good as it gets. I refuse to believe that, and you should too. Your arteries are living structures. They are capable of remodeling and repairing if you just give them the right environment and the right materials. Hypertension isn't a permanent life sentence. It's a structural condition that has been ignored by a system that only knows how to prescribe a Band-Aid. You have the knowledge now. You understand the glycocalyx, you understand the stiffness, and you understand the insulin lock. I'm not telling you to go out and throw your pills away tomorrow. That would be a dangerous mistake. Medication is there to keep the pressure from blowing a seal while you do the hard work of repairing the pipes. But don't let those pills be your only plan. Use them as a bridge while you rebuild the bridge itself. Work with your doctor, show them your logs, and let the data prove that you are healing. I'm going to head back inside now. Gloria is getting some things ready for Danielle and the kids to come over later, and I promised I'd help her with the garden. It's a beautiful day in Charlotte, and I intend to enjoy every second of it with a heart that feels flexible and a mind that feels clear. I'm still the supervisor of this machine, and I plan on keeping it in service for a long, long time. Take care of your vessels, neighbor. They're the only ones you've got, and they've been waiting for you to give them the care they deserve. I'll be right here, still tending to my own engine and still grateful for the chance to share what I've learned on this road. I'll see you out there on the path. Keep moving, keep repairing, and for heaven's sake, don't just settle for a good enough number when you can have a truly healthy heart. I'll see you next time. Stay safe, stay informed, and keep moving forward. Before I go, just remember, your health isn't something that happens to you. It's something you build, one choice at a time, every single day. The numbers on that cuff are just a report card. The real story is in the quality of your vessels and the strength of your commitment to yourself. You've got more power than you think. I'm living proof of it. Talk soon.